Last week, Lao Nan consulted a client and was also an entrepreneur in the real world. He talked with Lao Nan on the phone for more than an hour. The point of communication is that the customers are very anxious. They read many articles on the internet, saying that China today will repeat the 30 years that Japan lost. On the surface, there are indeed many similarities between China today and Japan 30 years ago, such as the release of real estate risks, such as the slowdown of economic growth, such as being suppressed by the United States, and even some aspects are not as good as Japan at that time. For example, Japan was a developed country at any rate, but now China is still a standard developing country and has just completed poverty alleviation. These challenges do exist, but in Lao Nan's view, China today is very different from Japan in those days in some very important places. It is estimated that there are more people interested in this question, so I will write an article today. In addition, there have been a lot of friends who have commented on the shares recently. You can watch our video account, a media interview by Lao Nan last Friday. It can be regarded as talking more clearly. 01. Independent. If we say the biggest difference between China and Japan, there is no doubt that it is independence. The days of peace have been too long, and many people do not realize the importance of independence. Our founding fathers, in order to ensure independence, did not hesitate to turn against the United States and the Soviet Union in the decades after the founding of the country. The main reason was to ensure that they would not be controlled by others for their precious independence. Japan is heading for recession, not only because of its own internal causes, but also because of its lack of political independence, which has been pitted by the United States. For example, in the well-known Plaza Agreement in September 1985, Japan lost its independence in exchange rate decision-making, and the exchange rate appreciated by more than 30% in more than a year. This is fatal for export-oriented countries. This sharp appreciation directly ruined the Japanese economy. The export growth rate fell from -0.7% in September 1985 to -20.9% in August 1986. The real GDP dropped from 7.5% in the fourth quarter of 1985 to 1.9% in the fourth quarter of 1986. It's not over yet. Because of the strength of the Japanese semiconductor industry, in 1986, it was forced to sign the Japan Semiconductor Agreement. Under the restrictions of price limit, production limit, and opening up of the domestic market, the global share decreased from 50.3% to 10% in 30 years. Although today, the upstream materials and equipment of the Japanese semiconductor industry are still very strong, but the market capacity of these industries is small and the employment capacity is small. If there was no US attack on Japan's semiconductor industry at the beginning, Taiwan would not have much chance in the future. So, stop complaining that China is being oppressed economically because it does not have a good relationship with the United States. Little Japan is like a grandson every day. Industrial upgrading threatens the United States, and it still breaks the back with a stick. Pay attention to Shilyu Sun-K, the comment area is very exciting backhand index pointing down. 02. Natural resources. Although there is indeed a big gap in resource endowment between China and the United States, it is still much better than Japan. The figure below shows that after World War II, with the process of industrialization, Japan's energy self-sufficiency rate has been between 10% and 20% for a long time. The prices of various industrial raw materials, even in 2021, are significantly higher than those in China and the United States. After all, China has coal as a backing, as well as the vigorous development of new energy in recent years, as well as the stable oil and gas imports from the Middle East and Russia, all of which ensure the stability and development of the industrial system. However, with the long-term depreciation of the yen in the later period, the cost of importing raw materials remains high. For Japan's domestic industries, especially industries, even if there is no suppression by the United States in the later period, they can only migrate overseas on a large scale, such as Southeast Asia and mainland China. Lower upstream costs. Therefore, Germany's BASF, a leader in the global industry, has invested a total of 10 billion euros in Zhanjiang, China this year, which is supported by the Chinese industrial system. 03. Population redundancy. From a global perspective, Japan's population is not small, and it exceeds 100 million, but even so, it is difficult to achieve industrial breakthroughs relying on domestic demand. The most recent example is a large aircraft. In fact, Japan also has its own large aircraft project. Mitsubishi Heavy Industries has invested heavily since 2000 to design and produce its own large aircraft MRJ, which was tested in 2015. As a result, in February of this year, it was announced that the project would be terminated, and then the entire network was full of news pictures of the first MRJ being disassembled in the United States. A few months later, China's C919 was officially commercialized. In fact, Japan's research and development capabilities are not bad. The core reason why MRJ was eventually abandoned was that the market ceiling was too low. It is very difficult for MRJ to obtain orders from overseas markets. At the initial stage, it can only be obtained in Japan. However, the scale of the Japanese market and the ceiling are too low to support such a gold-swallowing beast. The reason why the C919 can fly successfully in China lies in the fact that the domestic market in China is sufficient for the initial volume of C919 to reach a certain profit scale. Of course, China is now also facing a decline in overseas demand and the impact on foreign trade, especially the drop in foreign trade data in May. But pay attention to a detail. The rapid increase in car exports has caused a lot of decline. Automobiles and large aircraft are large industries that employ tens of millions of people. With the support of the domestic market, it is conducive to the upgrading and development of these industries, and then to the world. Let me add a word here. A few days ago, I chatted with a friend who is a PE. He just came back from Japan and said that Japan is still indifferent to electric vehicles. Several major car manufacturers are still very conservative. S-frame. In his view, Japan's auto industry has completely failed to catch up with the United States and China. 04. Besides that, there are many other differences. For example, if you are interested in the differences in the financial system, you can learn more about Japan's housing professional finance company and main banking system. For example, there are differences in industrial policies. The industrial policies led by the Japanese government have caused problems. In the past 10 years, almost no new industries have been born. In contrast, China has produced world-leading companies and a complete industrial chain in many industries such as new energy and photovoltaics. For example, the similarities and differences in military strength, weak countries have no diplomacy, and the truth is within the range of cannons. With the deployment of top equipment such as 055, J-20, and Dongfeng 17, it is possible to ensure a peaceful transition through the process of industrial upgrading. Of course, it does not deny that we are currently facing many problems and huge challenges. The next few years will definitely not be easy, as well as the aging population and declining birth rate. However, as long as China can achieve a comprehensive industrial breakthrough in the next 5 to 10 years, none of the above problems will be a problem. But these can only rely on the small towns to be the questioners, and it is useless to roll them out and lie flat.